The most powerful empires in history relied on a secret you have probably never noticed: hidden road stations, those forgotten waypoints scattered along ancient highways, were the true arteries of power. We are going to uncover 25 of these pivotal locations that held vast empires together. By the end of this journey, you will understand the invisible systems of connection that have shaped our world for centuries. How did a simple stone hut in the Andes allow an emperor to rule without a written language? What secret did the Mongol Khans know about moving information faster than anyone else? The answers reveal a forgotten art of binding diverse lands into a single, cohesive whole. What do you think is the most important thing that holds a civilization together? A carriage rattles to a halt on worn paving stones, its official passenger stepping out into the cool evening air of a bustling courtyard. This is the Mansio of Ad Medias on the Via Appia, a name that translates directly to at the halfway point. It was not merely a place to rest, it was a precisely calculated node in the most advanced communication network of the ancient world. Think of the Roman official arriving here, exactly halfway between Rome and the vital port of Brundisium. His journey and the empire's business depended entirely on this state-run complex. Unlike a simple inn, a Mansio provided fresh horses from its own stables, secure lodging for government personnel, and guarded storage for the imperial post known as the Cursus Publicus. One contemporary observer, the historian Aelius Aristides, marveled that Roman roads made it possible to be in places far away as if they were near. That feeling of a shrunken world was only possible because of stations like this one. They offered a standardized system of rest and resupply that turned a perilous journey into a predictable, managed itinerary, because an official knew he would find a safe haven with fresh mounts every 15 or 20 miles. The emperor's commands could race across Italy in a matter of days. Taxes flowed to the capital, troops marched to distant frontiers, and information moved with a speed that would be unmatched for over 1,000 years. How different would the Roman Empire have been without this hidden network of safety and efficiency? Its sprawling territories might have fractured under the slow weight of distance and miscommunication. This first hidden station established the fundamental blueprint for imperial control through managed travel, a concept that would be tested and refined in a much different empire far to the east. While Roman officials relied on state-run mansions, an entirely different kind of empire mastered the art of connection across a sea of sand. The Caravanserai of Zain-od-Din rises from the Iranian desert like a circular fortress of baked clay, its single gate a promise of survival. Built during the Safavid era, this was not just a shelter, it was a logistical masterpiece on the ancient Persian royal road. Picture a silk-laden caravan, camels groaning under the weight of spices and porcelain, trudging through brutal heat for a full day, about 30 to 40 kilometers. Their only hope was the distant silhouette of a caravanserai, a state-sponsored sanctuary offering what the desert withheld. Inside those sturdy walls, travelers found more than just shade. They discovered a secure courtyard, fresh water from a deep well, stables for hundreds of animals, and even workshops for repairs. An inscription from a similar way station praised the Shah for making the desert safe for travelers, a clear declaration that this hospitality was a tool of imperial power. These were not simple inns, they were economic engines. By providing standardized, free accommodation, the Persian Empire and its successors effectively subsidized the entire Silk Road. They understood that by removing the peril from travel, they could control the flow of goods, ideas, and cultures from China to the Mediterranean. Every merchant who rested safely within those walls was another thread woven into the empire's vast tapestry of wealth. The Caravanserai system proves that the most powerful investment an empire could make was in the traveler's most basic needs: water, security, and rest. This brilliant model of desert hospitality finds a stunning parallel far away, high in the cloud-shrouded passes of the Andes, where an empire without the wheel or written language built its own version of a world-connecting network. High in the thin air of an Andean pass, a stone hut stands as a silent testament to an empire built on human endurance. This is a Tambo, the third hidden station, a stark contrast to the Caravanserai's fortress-like security. Where the Persian system relied on merchant caravans, the Inca Cuhapac-Nyan, the royal road, was a network built for speed and state control. Visualize a small, stone-built complex nestled in a breathtaking but treacherous mountain pass, a vital refuge where a Chaski runner could pass a quipu message to his fresh-legged counterpart without breaking stride. These tambos were the essential way stations on a 25,000-mile network spanning the Andes. Unlike the sprawling caravanserais, tambos were often Spartan and purely functional, yet their placement was a masterpiece of logistical planning. They were strategically positioned every 20 to 25 kilometers, a distance calculated as a day's walk for a laden porter. Each one was stocked from state warehouses with food, clothing, and even weapons, creating a chain of imperial supply that snaked through the mountains. The Spanish chronicler Pedro Cieza de Leon marveled at how the Incas kept these stations supplied, noting it was one of the most notable things that the Incas achieved. This system was the lifeblood of the empire. It allowed for the rapid movement of imperial armies to crush rebellions, the redistribution of essential goods like maize and potatoes from fertile valleys to barren highlands, and the relay of coded messages using the quipu, a complex system of knotted strings. Through this network of stone huts, the Sapa Inca in Cusco could command loyalty and resources from provinces he might never even see in person. The efficiency of the Tambo raises a profound question: how does an empire communicate without a written language? The answer lies not in parchment or clay, but in the lungs and legs of the Chaski runner. These highly trained messengers could cover staggering distances in a relay system that moved information faster than any mounted courier in the rugged terrain of the Andes. This reliance on human endurance as the ultimate communication technology is a theme that echoes across continents, finding a startling parallel in the frozen landscapes of the far north. The scent of cardamom and dust hangs thick in the air of a vast, sun-baked courtyard. This is a Sarai on the Grand Trunk Road, the fourth hidden station where the sheer scale of the Mughal Empire becomes tangible. Commissioned by visionary rulers like Sher Shah Suri and expanded by the Moguls, these were not mere inns but monumental way stations, some large enough to stable horses, camels, and even the emperor's own war elephants. Their massive gates opened onto a world of orchestrated chaos, with separate quarters for nobles, merchants, and soldiers, all revolving around a central mosque and a bustling bazaar. A contemporary poet described them as havens of peace where the traveler reposes in safety, a powerful promise enforced by imperial authority along a road stretching 2,500 kilometers from Bengal to Kabul. This was imperial policy written in brick and mortar. By providing secure, standardized facilities for everyone, the Mughal state did more than just offer hospitality. It actively fostered the commerce that filled its treasury. The Sarai was a brilliant economic engine. Every merchant who found safety within its walls was another source of customs revenue at nearby toll posts, effectively monetizing the very act of travel. This system ensured that imperial officials and military contingents could move with ease, binding the empire's distant corners together with a ribbon of commerce and control. The Sarai's success lay in its inclusivity, a microcosm of the empire itself, proving that power could be projected not just through force, but through the provision of safety and the encouragement of trade. This sophisticated fusion of economics and infrastructure finds a fascinating echo far to the west, where another empire would perfect the art of the roadside stop into an instrument of postal speed and imperial will. The air in Lugdunum crackles with a very different energy than the desert Caravanserai. Here in Roman Gaul, the fifth hidden station is a hub of organized chaos, a major node of the Cursus Publicus. Imperial couriers, their authority proven by small lead diplomas, shout for the fastest horses while wagon trains heavy with Annona grain for the capital are repaired and resupplied. This is not a place of rest for merchants. It is the empire's central nervous system in action. The operation was so critical that its misuse was a capital crime, a fact strictly outlined in the legal texts of the Theodosian Code, which meticulously dictated the exact number of oxen, horses, and carriages each station must keep ready. Think of this as the high-speed internet of the ancient world. This state-run service carried military dispatches to frontier legions, tax records back to Rome, and even the latest news and luxury goods for the patrician class. By commanding this network, an emperor in Rome could project his will instantly across thousands of miles, directing the movement of armies to crush a revolt in Britain or administer law in North Africa. The Cursus Publicus enabled a centralized government to manage a sprawling, multicultural empire with a speed and consistency that would not be seen again until the 19th century. This system, however, was an exclusive instrument of state power, its benefits reserved for official business. It raises a compelling question: what happens when a communication network is thrown open not just to government agents, but to every merchant, pilgrim, and traveler? The answer would be written across the vast, windswept steppes of Asia. The lone rider on the Mongolian steppe did not rely on grand architecture, but on brutal speed. The sixth hidden station, the Yam Post House, was the engine of an empire built on motion. A simple, Spartan structure, perhaps just a hut and a corral, held its true power in the 40 fresh horses Marco Polo witnessed, always kept ready for the Khan's messengers. This was not a place for merchants or pilgrims. It was a private, high-speed channel for the exclusive use of imperial couriers carrying the great Khan's will. The entire system, stretching from the gates of Europe to the coast of Korea, was a logistical marvel maintained by a corvée labor system that compelled local populations to supply horses, food, and shelter. This forced support was the hidden tax that powered the Mongol peace. The Yam's genius lay in its understanding of nomadic power. Control was not about building castles, but about moving information and force faster than any rival could react. A messenger clutching his paisa, a tablet of authority, could cover an astonishing 200 miles in a single day by switching mounts at each Yam. This meant a command from Karakoram could reach military commanders in Persia in a matter of weeks, not months, allowing the Mongols to coordinate their vast domains with a speed that crushed dissent before it could even fully form. But such relentless velocity came at a profound human cost. The local herdsman forced to surrender his best horses, the family compelled to feed and house passing officials. Their lives were the unspoken foundation of this imperial speed. This silent burden of empire, the weight placed upon the common person to maintain these networks of control, is a thread that leads us from the windswept steppe to a very different landscape, where another culture perfected the art of the journey in a world of water and mountains. Far from the Mongolian steppe, a different kind of isolation defined the seventh station. A wooden gate creaks open in the Hexi corridor, a stark, 1,000-mile strip of desert flanked by unforgiving mountains. This Han Dynasty Courier station is a fortress of sun-baked earth, its watchtower manned by soldiers scanning the horizon for more than just travelers. Established under the ambitious Emperor Wu, this was the empire's clenched fist along the Silk Road, a direct response to the constant threat of the Xiongnu Confederation. Its dual purpose was genius in its simplicity: to secure the route for the imperial couriers who carried edicts and silk, and to deny that same mobility to its enemies. The true nature of this system is etched not in stone, but on thousands of discarded wooden slips excavated from the desert sands. These administrative fragments record everything from a request for 500 arrows to a terse report on a passing official's conduct, revealing the meticulous bureaucracy that powered the Han expansion. Each slip is a snapshot of the empire's nervous system in action. For the courier arriving after a brutal day's ride, the station offered a life-saving routine, a hot meal, a secure place to sleep, and most importantly, a fresh horse. This chain of fortified way stations allowed the Han court in Chang'an to project its administrative reach over 1,000 miles into Central Asia, turning a precarious trade path into a managed imperial highway. The station was not just a military asset, it was an economic valve. By ensuring safe passage, the Han state could actively foster the silk trade, drawing fabulous wealth westwards while ensuring every precious bolt was subject to imperial supervision and taxation. This was empire building through infrastructure, where a single station served simultaneously as a military garrison, a post office, and a customs house. The Han understood that to control the road was to control the wealth, and to control the wealth was to fund the armies that secured the road. This brilliant fusion of commerce and coercion created a self-reinforcing cycle of power, a model of imperial control that would be tested to its limits in a very different environment, where water, not sand, was the primary medium for connection. The sun beats down on a caravan of thousands, their destination Mecca, their immediate salvation a massive, domed cairn rising from the desert. This eighth hidden station, a fortress of faith on the Ottoman Darb al-Hajj, functioned as both a spiritual refuge and a powerful political statement. Unlike the exclusive yam of the Mongols, these khans were built for the masses, monumental structures like the famed Khan Yunis in Gaza, offering free water, secure lodging, and a tangible promise of safety to every pilgrim answering the call. By constructing and meticulously maintaining this infrastructure, the Ottoman sultans did more than facilitate a journey. They cemented their role as protectors of the holy cities and servants of the global Muslim community. This was imperial legitimacy written in stone and mortar. Contemporary accounts describe these stations as bustling cities in miniature, complete with their own markets, mosques, and bathhouses. A single khan could host thousands of people and their animals, its very existence stimulating local economies and weaving distant provinces like Syria and Egypt more tightly into the imperial fabric. The annual pilgrimage became a state-managed event, a moving river of humanity whose safe passage demonstrated the Sultan's piety and organizational power. The Darb al-Hajj was far more than a road. It was a physical manifestation of the empire's care for its subjects, proving that the strongest empires are those that serve a purpose greater than mere control. They bind people together not just with laws and soldiers, but with shared journeys and the provision of sacred safety. This masterful use of infrastructure to win hearts and minds presents a stark contrast to the next system we encounter, where the journey was stripped of all spiritual meaning and rebuilt as a machine of pure secular efficiency. The sharp blast of a coach horn cuts through the damp English air, a signal of pure commercial urgency. A mail coach rattles into the cobbled yard of a bustling coaching inn, its arrival triggering a perfectly timed routine. Passengers spill out for a hurried meal while a team of ostlers swap 4 lathered horses for fresh ones in under 5 minutes. This 9th station was the beating heart of the British Turnpike Trust system, a world away from state-run Roman posts or Mongol yams. Here, private investors built better roads and charged tolls, creating a faster, more reliable network that celebrated profit as much as progress. Thinkers like Adam Smith praised this model for unleashing commerce, and indeed, these inns became hubs of news, business, and social interaction. Printed timetables brought a new regimentation to daily life, synchronizing the nation with the clockwork rhythm of the mail coach. Yet for all its private enterprise, this system served vital imperial needs. It moved troops swiftly to quell rebellions in Scotland, distributed London newspapers to unify public opinion, and enabled a new class of mobile professionals who managed a growing global empire. The coaching inn proves that the arteries of power could be built not just by imperial decree, but by the invisible hand of commerce. This successful fusion of private profit and public function marks a pivotal shift in the history of connection, setting the stage for a system that would strip away all commercial pretense in its single-minded pursuit of military speed. The postmaster's hand slaps the courier's mount, sending it galloping down a road arrow straight toward the next relay. This 10th station, a relay to post on Napoleon's routes Imperials, was not merely a waypoint, it was the spark that ignited a continent. Napoleon Bonaparte, a commander who famously stated an army marches on its stomach, understood that it also marched on information. He transformed the existing French relay system into a militarized network of breathtaking precision, his routes Imperials. Across this web, imperial couriers carried orders that could mobilize entire army corps, their speed dictating the fate of nations. The system's genius was its ruthless standardization. Distances between each relay were fixed, procedures were drilled into every postmaster, a state official, and fresh horses were always ready. This allowed Napoleon to practice his master strategy, the central position. He could maneuver his separate army corps across a wide front, outmaneuvering his enemies, confident that his couriers could deliver the command to concentrate and fight together at the decisive moment. A victory like Austerlitz was not won on the battlefield alone. It was first won on the roads of France in the frantic efficiency of these relay stations. The relay was a cog, yes, but a cog in the most formidable military machine the world had yet seen. A weapon built not of steel, but of speed and synchronization. This relentless demand for velocity, however, pressed against the absolute limits of biology. How much faster could a message travel when its speed was bound by the stamina of a single horse and the endurance of a single rider? The answer would not be found in better breeding or stronger men, but in a fundamental reinvention of motion itself, a revolution that would soon echo from the very first tracks laid across a new frontier. A splintered wooden sign creaks in the wind, marking another isolated station on the trail to California. The 11th hidden station is a Wells Fargo outpost, its timbers scarred by sun and gunfire. As a stagecoach rattles to a halt under armed guard, the agent steps out, a revolver on his hip and his eyes scanning the horizon. This was more than a stop. It was the sharp edge of American expansion, a private enterprise performing the vital work of empire. Inside that iron-bound strongbox was not just gold, dust, and letters, but the entire machinery of a continent spanning ambition, mail contracts, bank drafts, and newspapers that carried the politics of Washington, D.C. into remote mining camps. In a land where government presence was thin to non-existent, the Wells Fargo agent became the de facto authority, a banker, a postmaster, and often the only representative of order for miles. The system was brutally efficient. A network of these stations placed every 10 to 15 miles allowed stagecoaches to run day and night, changing teams in minutes to maintain a schedule that connected the east and west coasts with a speed that seemed miraculous. This corporate infrastructure bound the nascent United States together with bands of leather and steel, proving that the functions of a state could be outsourced to a company whose bottom line was profit. But that very success made the stations targets. The same strongbox that carried the wealth of a nation also attracted the desperate and the greedy, turning every arrival into a potential ambush. This constant vulnerability on the wild frontier highlights a universal truth: the more valuable the connection, the more fiercely it must be defended. And it forces a difficult question: when the arteries of commerce are so exposed, how does an empire shield its lifeblood? The answer would be built not of wood, but of stone and cannon, in a system designed for one purpose: absolute protection. The 12th station offers no warm hearth for the merchant, only the cold stone of a coastal fortress. A Ribat on the frontier of Al-Andalus stands silent against the Mediterranean sky, its watchtower a needlepoint of vigilance. This is not a simple barracks or a monastery, but a powerful fusion of both, where Muslim warrior ascetics lived in a state of perpetual readiness. Their duty was twofold: to scan the horizon for Christian ships and to open their gates to any traveler seeking refuge. These fortified way stations, scattered from Spain to North Africa, turned the very concept of a border into a spiritual and military statement. Life within its walls was one of disciplined piety and constant drill, embodying the principle of jihad, a struggle that was as much about inner faith as outer defense. By securing the coastline, the Ribats did more than just repel raids. They made the sea lanes safe for the ships that carried goods and ideas between the Umayyad Caliphate in Cordoba and the heart of the Islamic world. Their presence was a catalyst for civilization. Farmers, assured of protection, would settle the surrounding lands, transforming barren frontiers into productive, taxable estates that extended the empire's cultivated reach. The Ribat was thus a self-perpetuating engine of expansion, a community where faith built the frontier, and the frontier, in turn, strengthened the faith. It reminds us that the most resilient way stations are those that serve not just the body, but also the soul, turning every journey along that road into a potential act of devotion. This profound intertwining of travel and spirituality finds a remarkable parallel in a system built not for war, but for inner peace across the world in feudal Japan. A world away from the Ribat's stark vigilance, the 13th station thrived on controlled spectacle. The Nihonbashi Bridge marked the start of the Tokaido, a road lined with 53 meticulously planned Shukuba post towns. Each was a vibrant, regulated world, its streets teeming with porters, palanquin bearers, and samurai processions. At the heart of this organized chaos stood the Honjin, an exclusive inn reserved for the regional daimyo lords on their mandatory journeys. These powerful men were not merely traveling, they were enacting a brilliant piece of political theater known as Sanken Kotai. The Tokugawa shogunate required these lords to spend every other year in the capital city of Edo, a policy that served two masterful purposes. First, it kept potential rivals physically close and under constant surveillance, preventing them from building independent power bases in their home provinces. Second, and just as crucially, the immense cost of maintaining two lavish households and funding the extravagant procession to and from Edo systematically drained the lord's financial resources, making rebellion economically impossible. The Shukuba were the gears in this machine of control. Checkpoints like the one at Hakone enforced strict laws, inspecting travelers to prevent the smuggling of weapons into Edo, and notably to ensure the wives and children of the daimyo remained in the capital as permanent political hostages. This constant, state-mandated travel transformed the Tokugawa into a river of wealth and information. The post towns flourished, their markets selling regional specialties to a captive audience of elite travelers, while news and cultural trends from the capital flowed back to the provinces. Artists like Hiroshige immortalized these stations in beautiful woodblock prints, but behind the cherry blossoms and serene landscapes was a system of unparalleled internal pacification. The Shukuba proved that a road's greatest power can be to keep a society peacefully closed, its people looking inward, its rulers secure. This insular stability, however, could not last forever, and the pressure for connection would soon burst forth in a new form, not along a road of earth, but on ribbons of steel. 14 centuries before the shoguns, a different kind of power was being forged on a distant shore. Salt spray stings the air as a Phoenician galley is hauled onto a Sardinian beach, its hull laden with bolts of vivid purple cloth and delicate glass vessels. This temporary camp at a place like Tharos is the 14th hidden station, a masterclass in minimalist empire building. There were no sprawling fortresses here, no grand administrative complexes, only a simple, strategic presence at a protected cove. The Phoenicians were not conquerors of territory in the traditional sense, they were conquerors of markets. Their empire was a web, a chain of these trading posts that stretched from their home cities of Tyre and Sidon all the way to the Atlantic coast of Spain. Each post served as a safe harbor, a resupply point for the legendary cedar ships, and a neutral ground for trade with local tribes. The genius of this system was its fluidity and focus. A post like Motia on Sicily was not established to rule the interior, but to control the flow of a single, critical commodity, tin from the far west, which when mixed with local copper, created the bronze that defined the age. By securing these nodes, the Phoenicians created the first truly global supply chain, moving silver from Spain, ivory from Africa, and wine from the Levant. Their greatest export, however, may have been an idea, the alphabet. This revolutionary system of writing, far simpler than the complex scripts of Egypt or Mesopotamia, was a tool of commerce they shared, weaving their trading partners into a common linguistic fabric. The Phoenician network was an empire of connection, proving that influence could be measured not in square miles of land conquered, but in the number of safe harbors and reliable partnerships established. This maritime mastery of the ancient world finds a startling echo in a much later era, where another island nation would use its ships not just for trade, but to weave a planetary web of communication. A dragon ship's hull grates against the gravel of a riverbank, its serpent head prow a silent declaration of intent. This is the 15th hidden station, a Viking Longphort, a fortified camp at the mouth of a strategic river like the Seine. Far from a temporary raiding camp, this was a masterfully chosen way station for an empire of motion. Within its wooden palisades, the Vikings created a hybrid world, a space where warriors repaired their advanced clinker-built ships while simultaneously trading amber and furs with local merchants. The Longphort was the essential key that unlocked the continent. It provided the security to overwinter, a base to plan raids deep inland, and a launch point for establishing permanent trade routes. From these initial footholds, seasonal camps evolved into powerful cities like Dublin and Rouen, transforming from symbols of terror into centers of commerce. This evolution from plunder to profit is the Longphort's true legacy. It demonstrates how a decentralized network of secure bases, linked by unmatched maritime mobility, could project a form of imperial influence without a central emperor. The Vikings understood that control did not always require holding vast territories, but rather commanding the critical points of entry and exchange. Their success on foreign shores hinged on this ability to be both fearsome raiders and canny traders, using the Longphort as the chameleon-like heart of both operations. This fluid approach to power, built on seafaring skill and strategic way stations, stands in stark contrast to the next system we encounter, which sought to bind a continent not with the unpredictability of the sea, but with the absolute predictability of a single, unifying standard. A solitary whitewashed Dak bungalow stands stark against the Indian landscape, its veranda offering a lonely vantage point over an immense territory. This 16th hidden station was the essential tool for a handful of colonial officers to govern millions. Its design was purely functional, a government rest house providing Spartan but reliable shelter for a touring official, a missionary, or a merchant moving along the Grand Trunk Road. The system's power lay in its calculated spacing, each bungalow positioned roughly a day's horse ride from the next. This network transformed the vast subcontinent into a manageable circuit, enabling the district officer to become a mobile embodiment of imperial authority. He would arrive, set up his temporary court on the veranda, dispense British justice, collect land revenue, and meticulously document the local conditions. The Dak bungalow was more than a building. It was a procedural outpost where the abstract machinery of the Raj touched the ground. Its routine operation, the keeper's logbook noting every official's arrival and departure, created a predictable rhythm of inspection that projected a sense of omniscient control. This constant, visible circulation of officials was a psychological masterstroke, making the empire feel ever-present even where its physical footprint was incredibly thin. The same road that brought the district officer also allowed for the rapid deployment of sepoy regiments to crush any sign of rebellion, making the bungalow network both a scalpel for administration and a conduit for military force. The entire edifice of this control, however, rested on a profound vulnerability: the isolation of each bungalow, that lone white building in an endless green countryside, laid bare the audacity of colonial rule, a system that depended entirely on the perceived authority of a single man far from home. This model of controlling a vast land through a sparse network of traveling officials is not a modern invention. It finds a startling and much older echo in the journey of a different imperial inspector, one who traveled not for a foreign crown but for a divine king. A desert wind whispers across stone, carrying the ghost of a garden. The 17th station rises from the Jordanian desert not as a simple fort but as a palace. Qasr al-Halabat, with its elaborate bathhouses and vibrant frescoes, was a deliberate shock to the senses, and Umayyad Qasr built to awe as much as to protect. This was not merely a stop on a trade route, it was a declaration. The Umayyad caliphs used these desert castles to project their power directly over the vast Bedouin tribes, the true masters of the arid expanse. By constructing these oases of civilization, complete with sophisticated water collection systems that turned the desert green, the empire performed a masterful act of co-option. They offered the nomadic tribes a settled, prosperous life under the Umayyad banner, transforming potential raiders into reliable allies and, crucially, taxpayers. The Qasr was a multi-purpose tool, serving as an agricultural estate, a secure caravan station, and a luxurious retreat for the elite. But its most important function was psychological. It made the empire's presence and its benefits undeniable in the most remote hinterlands. The security of the lucrative trade routes between Syria and Arabia was no longer enforced solely by the sword, but by the allure of running water, painted walls, and economic opportunity. This use of architectural grandeur and environmental mastery as tools of imperial integration reveals a sophisticated understanding of soft power centuries before the term existed. The Umayyads knew that to hold the desert, you had to make it bloom, and to command loyalty, You had to offer a vision of a better life. This elegant fusion of luxury and control stands in stark contrast to the next system, where every aesthetic consideration was stripped away in favor of pure, unadulterated utility. A crude, sod-roofed hut hunkers low against the endless Nebraska sky, a speck of defiant life on the vast plains. Inside, the air is thick with dust and urgency as a wiry young rider, his face etched with exhaustion, slings the precious male machilla over the saddle of a fresh pony. In under 2 minutes, he is gone, a diminishing cloud of dust racing toward California. The Pony Express stations of 1860 and 61 were the 18th hidden station, a network built not for comfort but for the reckless pursuit of speed. This was a privately run, financially disastrous gamble, a proof of concept designed to show Congress and the nation that a central mail route across the continent was not just a dream but a tangible reality. Riders like the young Buffalo Bill Cody became legends not for their strength in battle, but for their sheer endurance, covering 75 to 100 miles in a single, grueling shift. Their secret was the brutal mathematics of the system, changing horses every 10 to 15 miles at these remote outposts, pushing animal and human limits to their absolute breaking point. The stations themselves were the most vulnerable links in this chain, often little more than a dugout or a rough cabin, manned by keepers who faced profound isolation and the constant threat of conflict. They were lifelines in a truly empty landscape, their sole purpose to keep the machilla moving, to ensure that the words of a nation, its business deals, its love letters, its news from home never stopped flowing west. While the Pony Express was ultimately eclipsed in just 18 months by the instant click of the telegraph wire, its legacy was not in its longevity. It captured the public imagination like nothing before it, a spectacular demonstration of national will and a testament to the belief that no distance was too great to be conquered by human courage and a fast horse. It represents the last heroic gasp of a frontier spirit defined by raw endurance, a fleeting moment before technology finally severed the ancient bond between the speed of a message and the stamina of the one who carried it. That final, decisive cut would come not with the gallop of a horse, but with the silent, instantaneous pulse of electricity along a wire. The Chaski runner's world was measured in heartbeats and burning lungs. His target was a simple stone shelter, a Chaski Wasapata, the 19th hidden station and the living soul of the Inca communication network. This was where the magic happened, the precise point where one exhausted runner would meet his fresh replacement. Gasping in the thin air of a 15,000-foot pass, he would recite his memorized message, sometimes reinforcing it by presenting the intricate knots of a quipu. The waiting runner, having heard the information once, would immediately turn and sprint toward the next station, the words now his sole responsibility. This was not a mere foot race, it was a relay of human memory, a system that turned individual endurance into a tool of imperial administration. These Chaskis were far more than just messengers. They were a highly trained civil service, selected from local communities for their speed, loyalty, and phenomenal recall. They lived a life of discipline, supported by the state with food and clothing from the nearby Tambos, and were exempt from other forms of labor tax. Their privilege was earned through a brutal responsibility, the flawless transmission of the Sapa Incas will across a realm of impossible geography. Through their efforts, the state could conduct a census of millions, mobilize labor to build terraces and storehouses, and direct armies to a distant valley with a coordination that rivals modern logistics. The entire empire functioned on this foundation of spoken words and knotted cords. How could such a vast state operate without written archives? The answer forces us to redefine communication itself. For the Inca, the most reliable record was not ink on parchment, but a living, breathing person trained to carry and deliver information with perfect fidelity. This was an empire administered through human lungs and disciplined minds, a poignant testament to what can be achieved before the first scratch of a pen or the first pulse of electricity. The Chaski's fading footsteps mark the end of an era, the final, magnificent expression of a world where connection was a physical, human act. A new kind of silence filled the small brick building, broken only by the relentless click of a telegraph key. This 20th station, the repeater house squatting beside a colonial railway line, was the quietest and most revolutionary of them all. Inside, an operator monitored the fragile electrical pulse carrying a viceroy's command from London, boosting its strength so the message could race onward, thousands of miles further to a remote military outpost. Historian Daniel Hedrick called this technology a definitive tool of empire, and for good reason. The entire apparatus of colonial rule now operated at the speed of electricity. A rebellion rumored in the morning could be met with troop movements ordered from the imperial capital by afternoon, a pace of response that would have stupefied a Mongol Khan or a Roman consul. This was the All Red Line, a British communications network that painted the globe with instant imperial will. The station itself was utterly anonymous, a functional node requiring little more than a telegraph operator and a connection to the railway's power supply. Yet its impact was absolute. It decoupled communication from the physical road for the first time in human history. The endurance of the Chaski runner, the speed of the Pony Express rider, the logistics of the Caravanserai, all were rendered obsolete by this invisible current. The empire no longer just moved on roads and sea lanes, it now pulsed along copper wires, allowing for a centralized, near real-time management of global trade and military force that previous empires could only dream of. This was the final triumph over terrestrial distance, but it also marked a profound shift. The road station, for millennia the indispensable anchor of power, was suddenly demoted. The true station was now the signal itself, fleeting and invisible, traveling a pathway that was no longer made of dirt or stone, but of pure information. This fundamental decoupling from the earth beneath our feet would only accelerate, leading to the next, even more abstracted layer of connection, one that required no wires at all. The scent of salt and pine tar defines the 21st station, a walled enclave on the Thames known as the Steelyard. This was no simple merchant's quarter, it was a Hanseatic contour, a sovereign commercial fortress operating under its own laws within the heart of London. German merchants lived and traded here, enjoying extraterritorial rights granted by an English king desperate for access to their goods. Their power did not come from armies or conquered land, but from a ruthless monopoly over the Baltic trade. Think of the Kontor as a hardened way station for commerce itself. Inside its gates, the air was thick with the smell of Norwegian timber, Russian furs, and precious beeswax, all commodities that the rest of Europe desperately needed. The League's strength was this network, a chain of similar contours stretching from Novgorod in the east to Bruges in the west. Each one was a node in a corporate empire, allowing the League to collectively bargain, threatening to embargo entire kingdoms if their privileges were challenged. This was a form of power built on supply chains and ledgers, not on swords and crowns. The Kontor's security was guaranteed not by its own walls alone, but by the sheer economic clout of the Hanseatic League. If a member merchant was unfairly taxed in London, the entire network could retaliate by closing its ports to English wool, bringing the local economy to its knees. This demonstrated that political influence could be projected through control of the market itself. The Hanseatic model presents a radical alternative to every empire we have seen so far, a decentralized corporate power where the most important territory was not land but access. The road station was no longer a place for travelers to rest, but a trading factory planted in a foreign city, a concept that feels strikingly familiar in our modern, globalized world. This vision of power derived purely from commerce would soon be challenged, however, by a system that fused trade and territory into a new, more aggressive form of control, one that sought not just to access resources, but to own them completely. A bell tolls over the adobe walls of Mission San Juan Capistrano. Its sound a command that shaped the daily rhythm of life along the Camino Real. This 20-second hidden station was far more than a place of rest. It was a total institution, a spiritual and economic engine designed to absorb a continent into the Spanish Empire. Placed a day's journey apart, these missions formed a chain of control that physically secured the land for the Spanish crown, while systematically remaking the lives of the Native American people who lived there. The mission complex was a self-contained world, part church, part school, part hospital, and part fortress. Within its walls, converts learned new trades, from blacksmithing to weaving, while also tending vast fields and herds that produced cattle hides, tallow, and olive oil for imperial trade. This was colonization of the soul and the soil, a deliberate fusion of economic production and religious conversion. The road, the Camino Real, was the artery that connected these nodes of power, allowing priests, soldiers, and officials to move between them, reinforcing a shared doctrine and a common purpose. The mission's ultimate goal was to create new, loyal subjects for the empire, transforming independent communities into populations integrated into the Spanish economic and spiritual hierarchy. This heavy-handed approach to integration, where the way station aimed to permanently erase and rewrite a traveler's identity, stands as one of history's most profound and controversial uses of the road. It forces us to confront a difficult truth that the stations which bind an empire together can also be the very instruments used to unravel the cultures they encounter. This stark model of assimilation presents a powerful contrast to the next system, which achieved imperial cohesion not through forced conversion, but through the subtle, irresistible pull of shared luxury and economic necessity. The 23rd station is a simple mud brick inn on the Royal Road where the dust never truly settles. Here, the empire's true priority was not the comfort of the merchant, but the relentless speed of the king's courier. The Greek historian Herodotus immortalized these men, writing that they were stayed neither by snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night. This was the Angarium, the royal messenger service that turned the Persian king's highway into a nervous system for the ancient world's first superpower. These couriers were the empire's elite athletes of information, riding in a relay from one roadside station to the next. Each station provided a fresh horse, a moment's respite, and nothing more, because delay was the only true enemy. The system's legendary reliability created miracles of logistics. It was said that the great king, seated in his palace at Susa, could dine on fresh fish caught in the Aegean Sea, a testament to the velocity this network could achieve. More importantly, an edict issued in Persepolis could reach a satrap, a provincial governor, in distant Egypt or the frontiers of India in a matter of days. This was not merely about delivering fish, it was about delivering the king's will faster than any rumor of rebellion could spread. The entire administration of the vast Achaemenid Empire, with its myriad cultures and peoples, depended on this standardized chain of command. Every station was a calculated step in a grand design for cohesion, proving that to rule a diverse empire, you must first conquer time itself. The Persian model, with its focus on pure, unimpeded communication, would become the gold standard, directly inspiring the Roman Cursus Publicus we encountered at the very beginning of our journey. The modern postal service's famous motto about rain and snow is a direct echo of Herodotus' words, a timeless tribute to the Persian courier's dedication. In the end, beyond all the stone and mortar, the sprawling networks and the brilliant logistics, every empire's stability came down to the endurance of a single, determined person, carrying a message against the elements. This focus on the human link, the individual will pushing forward, brings us to the final, crucial element that made all these systems possible: the communities who built, maintained, and ultimately bore the weight of these empires of connection. The river wharf was a station that never slept, its muddy bank churned by the endless loading and unloading of a continent's ambition. In antebellum St. Louis, a steamboat from New Orleans, its decks piled high with bales of southern cotton, would dock beside a flatboat from Pittsburgh, laden with Pennsylvania iron and Ohio grain. This was the 24th hidden station, a chaotic and vital interchange where the economic destinies of disparate regions were physically lashed together. The wharf was the unplanned commercial heart of an American water empire, a network of thousands of such landings that turned the Mississippi River system into a liquid highway. There was no imperial architect here, no royal decree mandating its construction. Its power emerged from the raw logic of steam and current, binding the agricultural South and the emerging West to the industrializing North through a relentless flow of commerce. This system created a profound and dangerous interdependence: the cotton that clothed mills in New England, the grain that fed growing cities, the manufactured goods that supplied frontier settlements, all converged on these bustling, transient way stations. The wealth of the nation literally changed hands on these wooden planks, enriching merchants and financiers in eastern centers of power. While it lacked the formal structure of a Roman Mansio or a Persian Angarium, the wharf served the exact same ultimate function, facilitating the flow of resources that sustained a vast economic domain. Its very existence deepened the connections that would soon be torn apart, proving that the bonds of commerce could be as powerful as any imperial edict. This fluid, market-driven network represents the way station in its final, purely economic form, a system of connection about to be rendered obsolete by the parallel ribbons of steel and copper wire that would soon stitch the continent together in an entirely new and far more rigid pattern. The rumble of a heavy supply cart echoes down the cobbles of the Via Egnatia, a sound not of speed but of relentless, grinding progress. Our final hidden station is a mutatio, a simple changing post where a Cursus Publicus driver unhitches his exhausted oxen and leads a fresh team into their traces. This was the empire's most humble and numerous way station, a place devoid of the official luxury found in a Mansio, dedicated to a single, vital function, keeping the weight moving. While imperial couriers raced past with their urgent dispatches, the mutations were the unsung workhorses that supported the entire logistical backbone of Rome. They enabled the slow, monumental transfer of grain to feed distant legions, of armor and weapons to equip them, and of stone and timber to build the forts that held the frontier. The Via Egnatia itself was a monumental achievement, the first true land bridge connecting the Adriatic coast to the rising power of Byzantium. But this grand road, this direct link between Europe and Asia, would have been a useless ribbon of stone without these frequent, uncelebrated pit stops. Their existence made the abstract idea of a continent-spanning empire a tangible, operational reality. Every empire we have explored, from the Persian to the Inca, from the Mongol to the British, ultimately rested on a version of this simple, repetitive truth. The glorious cities, the epic conquests, the flow of silk and silver, all of it depended on the silent, constant work at 1,000 forgotten way stations. The true strength of a vast network lies not in its most impressive nodes, but in its most mundane, reliable, and essential links. This is the final, quiet lesson of the Hidden Road Station, a testament to the power of the ordinary in sustaining the extraordinary. Across every empire and every era, a profound pattern emerges from the dust of these 25 stations. The first universal rule was standardization. Whether it was the Roman Mansio spaced every 15 miles or the Inca Tambo positioned a day's walk apart, each system created a predictable rhythm of travel. A merchant on the Grand Trunk Road or a Mongol courier clutching his pazer knew exactly what to expect at the next stop: a fresh horse, secure shelter, and a reliable resupply. This consistency transformed the terrifying unknown of a long journey into a manageable, almost mechanical itinerary. The second common thread was an obsession with security. The high walls of a Persian caravanserai, the armed guards at a Wells Fargo outpost, the watchful soldiers at a Han Dynasty Courier fort, all served the same purpose: to protect the empire's circulating lifeblood from bandits, rivals, and chaos. Without this guaranteed safety, the flow of trade, taxes, and troops would simply cease. But the third and most crucial commonality reveals the station's true purpose. They were never built for the traveler's benefit alone. Everyone was a tool of control. The Tokugawa shogunate used its post towns to drain the wealth of its regional lords. The Spanish missions aimed to remake indigenous cultures, and the Roman Cursus Publicus existed solely to speed the emperor's commands. These stations enabled the three core functions of imperial power: the collection of taxes on goods moving along the road, the rapid mobilization of armies to any trouble spot, and the subtle or overt assimilation of diverse peoples into a single imperial identity. An empire, therefore, is not merely a colored blotch on a historical map. It is a living, functioning system of connections. The Hidden Road Station was the critical synapse in that vast imperial nervous system, the point where a signal is passed, reinforced, and directed. The ultimate lesson is that the true power resided not in the stone and mortar of the station itself, but in the integrated, standardized, and secure network it represented. This ancient principle, that control follows connection, remains just as vital today for the global supply chains and digital networks that bind our modern world. From the echoing courtyards of Persian caravanserais to the silent stone tambos of the Andes, these 25 hidden road stations were the unsung heroes of history, the quiet forces that bound continents and cultures together. They teach us a profound truth: that empires are built not only on conquest but on connection, on the fundamental ability to move, communicate, and sustain life across vast and challenging distances. The principles that define these ancient networks, reliability, security, and centralized control, are the very same ones that underpin our modern world. Think of the global supply chain that delivers goods to your doorstep, a system demanding predictable schedules and secure shipping lanes, a direct echo of the standardized caravanserai and the guarded Roman road. Consider the data server farm, a humming, climate-controlled fortress protecting the flow of digital information, a spiritual successor to the fortified courier station and the telegraph repeater house. The next time you pull into a highway rest stop, a place designed for predictable refueling and safe respite, remember the ancient legacy you are participating in. That simple act of pausing on a journey connects you to a lineage of travelers, merchants, and messengers stretching back thousands of years. We have uncovered these secrets of connection together, but history is filled with countless more forgotten systems that held our world together. What other hidden networks or overlooked inventions do you think shaped the course of civilization? Share your own thoughts and discoveries in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey through the invisible arteries of empire, be sure to subscribe for more explorations into the hidden workings of history.